When my mother-in-law handed me that apron and said, "Put this on, the real family's about to eat," I swear the air left my lungs. I just stood there, frozen. My fingers tightened around the serving tray I was holding, the silver edges digging into my palms. I could feel every pair of eyes at that table, watching, judging, waiting for me to either break or obey. And then came the laugh, my husband's laugh. Daniel, my Daniel. The man who once kissed my knuckles and promised me he'd protect me from the world. He laughed. Not a belly laugh, not a snort, but a sharp, amused chuckle, like what his mother had just said was no big deal, just another quirky Elaine moment. I looked over at him, hoping, pleading, for something in his expression to tell me he saw it, that he understood how humiliating this was. But his eyes, they darted away, almost as if avoiding mine, and for a second I caught it, that flicker of guilt, barely there, but real. Still, he said nothing. A thick silence stretched across the room. You know the kind? Heavy and suffocating. The only sound was the gentle clinking of wine glasses as someone at the far end of the table tried to pretend this wasn't happening. Elaine stood tall, a perfect posture sculpted from decades of society brunches and Pilates. Her smile was tight, precise, practiced, not an ounce of warmth behind it. Her pearls caught the chandelier light, casting tiny reflections across her silk blouse. She looked down at me, not angrily, not cruelly, but like she was correcting a mistake, like I had somehow forgotten my place. And in that moment, something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not all at once, but like a hairline fracture through glass, silent, spreading. I felt Micah shift beside me, my son, 7 years old, quiet, thoughtful, always watching. He was sitting at the kids' table in the corner, his little legs swinging under the chair. He didn't say anything, but his big brown eyes, my eyes, were locked on me. He had heard it all, and that's when the shame hit me the hardest. Not because Elaine saw me as less than, I already knew that, but because he saw me being treated like I was less than. And worse, because I didn't fight it. My throat tightened, and my vision blurred for a split second. I blinked hard, forcing it back. No way I was going to cry here, not in front of them. I took a deep breath. My hands trembled slightly as I set the tray down on the nearby counter. The aroma of rosemary lamb filled the air, but I couldn't smell it. All I could focus on was the pounding in my ears, the heat crawling up my neck. Inside, a war raged. One voice screamed, "Stand up for yourself. Don't let her treat you like this." Another whispered, "Don't make a scene. Not in front of Micah. Not now." Elaine extended the apron again, her arm unmoving. "It's just tradition, dear," she added sweetly, like that made it okay. I almost asked her what kind of tradition involves reminding someone they don't belong. I didn't. I just stared at her. And then I took it. I wish I could tell you I tore it in half, said something clever and stormed out, but I didn't. I took it. Because in that moment, I wasn't thinking about pride. I was thinking about survival. I slipped it on, numb, my fingers fumbling with the ties. Daniel reached for his wine like nothing happened. Elaine returned to her seat, victorious. But as I turned to check on Micah, he was gone. And what he came back with would change everything. Before that dinner, before the apron, before the smirk, I used to tell myself I was lucky. Not because life had been easy, it hadn't. I grew up in the South Ward of Newark, New Jersey. 1 bedroom, 5 foster siblings, and a shared bathroom with a door that never locked. The kind of neighborhood where people didn't ask why the windows were boarded up. They just looked the other way. My name's Liana. I'm 29 now, but I've been older than my years since I was 9, maybe younger. I learned fast how to patch holes in my shoes with duct tape, how to stretch a can of soup into dinner for 3 nights, and how to disappear when grown-ups started yelling. I wasn't supposed to make it out, as people like to say, but I did, somehow. I juggled school and late-night shifts at a corner diner, studied during smoke breaks. I earned a graphic design degree from a community college most people hadn't heard of. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every step of the way, I earned it. That's when I met Daniel. It was at a startup launch party in the city. I wasn't invited, technically. I designed a logo for one of the vendors, and they let me tag along. I remember feeling completely out of place, surrounded by people in blazers that probably cost more than my rent. I was sipping watered-down champagne, trying to not look like I belonged in the coat room, when Daniel walked up. He had that clean-cut, golden boy look, tailored suit, perfect teeth, the kind of confidence you only grow up with if you've never had to split a lunch with your siblings. But his smile wasn't condescending. It was curious. "You a designer?" he asked, gesturing at the name tag I'd scribbled my name on with a half-dried Sharpie. I nodded, expecting the usual half-interested nod, but he kept talking, asking about my work, where I came from, and instead of looking horrified when I told him I used to sleep in the back of a bodega when my foster mom locked us out, he listened, like, really listened. We started dating, and it was fast, intense, magical, at first. He took me to places I'd only seen on TV, rooftop bars, wine tastings, charity galas. For a while, I thought maybe this was what fairy tales looked like in real life. I met his friends. Most of them were polite, a little too polished, and always asked the same question. Where did you go to school again? But the real test? Meeting Elaine, his mother. From day one, I could feel her smile pulling tight every time I spoke. She never outright insulted me, but she never let me forget the unspoken rule, "You're not one of us." I remember the first dinner at her home, how she introduced me as Daniel's little designer friend to her guests. Not girlfriend, not partner, just a project. But Daniel would laugh it off. "That's just how my mom is," he'd say, slipping his hand into mine. "She'll come around." I wanted to believe him. I really did. So when we got married 2 years later, quiet courthouse wedding, just the three of us, Daniel, me, and little Micah, I thought maybe things would finally shift. Maybe now, with a ring on my finger and a child between us, I'd truly be seen as family. But the truth is, some people don't change, and others don't want to see what's right in front of them. That night at dinner wasn't the beginning of Elaine's cruelty. It was just the first time she stopped hiding it. And as I stood in her kitchen, apron in hand, my son's eyes on me, I realized I had spent years trying to be accepted into a world that never planned to let me in. But what none of them saw coming was what Micah would do next. It was supposed to be a celebration. Our 5th anniversary. Daniel said his mother wanted to host a proper family dinner. Just us, Micah, and his parents. I should have known better. Elaine never invited people she didn't consider family, unless there was a performance to watch, and that night, I was the entertainment. When we arrived, the house looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. Big bay windows, flickering candles, a table set like it was Thanksgiving at Buckingham Palace. The air smelled like rosemary, roasted garlic, and lemon zest, her signature blend. Micah ran ahead, excited by the fancy napkin folds, his little bow tie crooked. Elaine greeted Daniel with a kiss on the cheek, her signature half-hug for me. She looked me up and down like she was scanning for stains. "Well," she said with a tight smile, "for a girl from the slums, you cleaned up okay." It was a whisper, but not quiet enough. My stomach dropped. Daniel didn't even flinch. He just brushed past her and headed to the bar cart, asking if the wine was chilled. I felt my cheeks flush, burning, hot, and heavy. I wanted to believe I'd misheard her, or that it was some twisted joke I wasn't in on. But the way she said it, the way her lips curved, not like a smile but like a knife, there was no misunderstanding. Then came the apron. She held it out to me. Pristine white with lace trim and a tiny embroidered E. It probably hadn't touched a real kitchen in years. "Put this on, dear," she said. "The real family is about to eat." That word. Real. It stuck to my ribs like a bruise forming from the inside. I looked at Daniel again, searching his face for something, disapproval, discomfort, anything. But instead, he laughed. Not hard, just one of those casual chuckles, like she'd said something silly but harmless. Like this didn't matter. My heart twisted in my chest. Micah was standing by the sideboard, quietly watching. His tiny hand was gripping the edge of the tablecloth. He didn't say a word, but his eyes, those soft, dark eyes, followed every movement. I didn't want to ruin the night for him. He'd been so excited to wear his little fancy clothes. He loved his grandparents, even if Elaine only acknowledged him when she needed a photo op. So I took the apron. My fingers shook as I tied it around my waist. Every knot felt like I was wrapping myself in shame. Dinner was served. Elaine passed dishes down the table like a queen distributing favors. Daniel chatted about work, some new partnership he was proud of. I don't even remember what I said. I was on autopilot, smile, nod, serve. Then something strange happened. Micah excused himself quietly. No one noticed but me. He disappeared down the hallway. I kept waiting for him to come back, maybe from the bathroom or to grab one of his toy cars. But instead, 10 minutes later, he reappeared with his tablet in hand, face calm, expression unreadable. He stood next to me, tugged lightly on my sleeve, and whispered, "Mommy, can I show them something?" My heart was already fraying. I just nodded, unsure what he meant. He walked to the head of the table and, with all the confidence of someone much older than 7, said, "Excuse me, Grandma. I want to show everyone something." Elaine blinked, confused. Daniel looked up from his plate. Micah pressed a button, and suddenly the giant living room TV, synced to his tablet, lit up with something none of us expected. Videos, screenshots, voices, and I realized Micah had been recording. At first, no one moved. The living room lights dimmed slightly as the massive flat screen lit up in front of us, synced with Micah's tablet. His little fingers had been busy, and none of us had a clue. The first clip that played was blurry at first, angled slightly down like the camera had been hidden in his backpack. But the voices were clear, painfully clear. Elaine's voice echoed through the speakers. She's clever, I'll give her that. But Daniel could have done so much better. What kind of example is that for a child, raised by the state? My breath caught in my throat. Then another clip, a different setting, her sunroom, just a few weeks ago. The audio wasn't as loud, but I recognized the moment. I had just stepped out to take a phone call. Elaine again. It's no one's fault she comes from filth, but that doesn't mean we have to pretend she belongs. And then came the worst one. Daniel's voice. She gets too sensitive sometimes. I can't keep defending her. It just makes everything harder. You know how she is. That one didn't just hurt. It unraveled something inside me. I felt a mix of heat and numbness wash over me like someone had poured boiling water into my veins, then frozen it solid. My hands were clenched at my sides, nails digging into my skin. Daniel shot up from his chair, his voice stumbling over itself. "Micah, buddy, how did you even—" But Micah didn't flinch. He stood there like a soldier, calm, unshaken. He looked right at Elaine, then at Daniel, then up at me. "I don't want to eat with people who talk like that about my mom." Silence. Again. But different this time. Not thick. Electric. Like every molecule in the room had changed shape. Elaine's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her face was pale, barely blinking. Daniel stepped forward, trying to reach for the tablet. "Okay, that's enough," he said, voice low and tight, like he was trying to contain a wildfire, but it was already out. I looked at Micah, my sweet, observant little boy. He wasn't just standing up for me. He was holding up a mirror for all of them, and maybe for me too. I had spent so long trying to prove I belonged, trying to shrink myself, soften my voice, fold my edges inward to be more digestible. For them. For this family. But Micah didn't care about their wine glasses or their cold smiles. He saw the truth, and he made them look at it too. I reached down and gently took the tablet from his hands. I pressed pause. The screen froze on Elaine mid-sentence, her expression caught in a sneer. I set it on the table. Then I untied the apron, slowly, deliberately. My fingers were steady this time. Elaine finally spoke, her voice brittle. That was taken out of context. "No," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "It wasn't." I turned to Daniel next. He looked like a man unraveling, guilt and panic fighting for control. "I'm not angry you didn't defend me," I told him. "I'm angry you thought I wouldn't notice, that I'd just keep swallowing it, that our son would." He tried to respond, but I wasn't waiting anymore. I reached down, took Micah's hand, and said, "Let's go." And just like that, we walked out of that house. No shouting, no door slamming, just the quiet tap of Micah's dress shoes on marble tile and the sound of my own heart finally starting to beat again. We didn't say a word until we got to the car. Micah climbed into the back seat, his tablet resting quietly in his lap, and buckled himself in without being asked. The streetlights cast long golden shadows across his face. I looked at him through the rearview mirror and saw something I hadn't noticed before. Strength. He wasn't scared. He wasn't confused. He looked calm, steady. Like he'd done what he had to do, and he was okay with it. I sat there in the driver's seat, fingers curled around the wheel, my heart pounding so loud it felt like a bass drum in my chest. My mouth was dry, my body was tense. But somewhere underneath all of that, there was something else rising. Clarity. For the first time in years, I could see things for what they really were, not how I hoped they were, not how I'd been trying to make them. Micah broke the silence first. Are we in trouble? I turned in my seat, eyes stinging but smiling softly. No, baby, we're not in trouble. You were brave. You told the truth. That's never wrong. He nodded, looking out the window. Grandma was mean to you all the time. I heard her. I didn't like it. My chest tightened. I reached back and touched his knee. I didn't like it either. We drove home in silence, just the hum of the tires on the road and the whisper of the heater warming the car. I kept glancing at him, his head slowly leaning against the window, eyes starting to close. My boy, my little protector. When we got inside our apartment, I tucked him into bed. He wrapped his arms around me tighter than usual. I love you, Mom, he mumbled. I love you more, I whispered, kissing his forehead. Once he was asleep, I sat on the couch, hands folded in my lap, staring at the dark TV screen in front of me. My reflection looked tired, but not broken. Then my phone buzzed. Daniel. Of course. Missed calls, voicemails, texts. Liana, please, let's talk. I didn't know he recorded that. She didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry, I'll fix it. Fix it? How do you fix years of silence? Of letting things slide? Of watching the person you love become a stranger who laughs at your pain? I didn't respond. He called again. I let it ring. The truth was, something had shifted. And not just in Daniel or Elaine. In me. I thought walking out would feel like a failure, like I was giving up on the family I tried so hard to build. But instead, it felt like freedom, like I was finally choosing myself, choosing my son. The next morning, I woke up to an email from Elaine. One line. You've made your point. I hope you're happy. No apology, no ownership, just control dressed up in passive aggression. I deleted it without blinking. Later that week, I started looking at new apartments. Smaller, simpler. Just mine and Micah's. We didn't need much, just peace, love, and space to be seen as equals. Daniel kept reaching out, and to be honest, I didn't shut the door, not yet. But I made it clear, this time if he wanted to be part of our lives, he'd have to do more than apologize. He'd have to change, show up, speak up. Every time. But whether he did or not, I wasn't waiting anymore. Micah had already shown me everything I needed to know. That night at the dinner table, he didn't just stand up for me. He reminded me who I am, and that I'm already enough. People always talk about the moment everything changes, like it's some dramatic explosion or a door slamming shut. But for me, change felt quiet, like something slowly unclenching inside my chest after years of being squeezed too tight. It didn't happen overnight. I didn't wake up the next morning with a new life. But I did wake up knowing the old one was no longer welcome. In the days that followed, I started unpacking pieces of myself I hadn't touched in years. Not just the version of me who worked 2 jobs and still made it to class, not the survivor, but the woman I was before I tried to shrink myself into Daniel's world, the one who knew what she wanted and what she'd never tolerate again. I made lists. I filled notebooks. I reached out to friends I'd drifted from, people who'd always seen me, not just as Daniel's wife or Elaine's disappointment, but as Liana, smart, creative, whole. Micah and I settled into a routine that felt real. He stopped asking about Grandma. He didn't mention the video again either. I think, in his mind, it was done. He saw something that didn't feel right and tried to make it right. That's it. There's a purity to kids, one I hope the world never strips away from him. Daniel came by a couple times, always carefully timed, after school, before bedtime, never unannounced. He apologized, more sincerely this time, said he was in therapy, that he was unpacking a lot of things he'd ignored for too long. I listened. I didn't promise anything. Love doesn't disappear just because someone fails you. But trust? That has to be rebuilt. Slowly, brick by brick. And I told him, if he wanted a future with us, he'd have to earn it this time. No more passing silence off as peace. Elaine never reached out again. And honestly, I didn't expect her to. People like her don't often believe they're the problem. But that's okay. I'm not waiting for her validation anymore. I used to think being part of a family meant being liked, being approved of, fitting into someone else's mold. But now, I know that family isn't who opens their doors for you. It's who stands beside you when you're hurting, who speaks up with you, not over you, who makes space, not conditions. Micah gave me that lesson, without even knowing it. That dinner? That moment with the apron and the smirk and the humiliation? It used to live in my head like a scar. But now, it's a turning point. It's the moment I stopped trying to be good enough for people who couldn't see my worth. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see her again. The girl from Newark who never had much, but knew how to build, how to survive, how to rise. I see a mother raising a boy who speaks truth without fear, a woman who stopped apologizing for being exactly who she is. If you're watching this and you've ever felt small in someone else's world, if you've ever swallowed your voice, your pride, your truth just to keep the peace, I want you to know something. You don't need their approval. You don't need to keep shrinking just to fit in. You are already enough. And if no one around you sees it, then it's time to build a life with people who do. Because the moment you choose yourself, your peace, your dignity, your voice, that's when everything really starts to change. That's when you come home to yourself. And if this story touched you in any way, if you saw even a piece of yourself in it, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Tell me your story, or just say hi. Because no one should ever feel like they're going through this alone. If you found strength or comfort in this video, go ahead and give it a like and share it with someone who might need it too. It really helps more than you know. And if you want to hear more true stories like this, stories about real life, real people, and real turning points, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss a new one. Thanks for being here. You matter. I see you.